Tech says, what is the minimum amount Celtic need to spend in this window to ensure Rodgers signs a new contract? 20 million? What is that number? And your Ma says, I've said on here for months, Celtic won't spend like we'd want. Well, Rodgers isn't committed to a long-term deal, won't invest either until this year's Champions League money guaranteed. We've seen this movie before.
Yeah, a couple of interesting points. I don't think you could put an actual number on what Celtic need to spend in order to satisfy Brendan Rodgers, because you might get a bargain for, who's to say that you don't find a bargain for £5 million who, is worth something, multiples of that. But I just think they need to match his ambition. So yeah. I don't think there's actually a number that if Celtic were to spend below it or above it or whatever, that would change anything. I think it's entirely a matter of Brendan Rodgers identifying the players that he believes would make his first team stronger and Champions League ready, as far as any Scottish team could be Champions League ready. And then Celtic's board showing the same level of ambition and commitment, and going out there and getting the deals done. That's the key part. As we were talking about there, this £1.5 million bid for a winger, that all smacks again of the first tier transfer strategy philosophy that we think Celtic's board might be employing this summer.
Yeah.
Which gets away from the way that Brendan Rodgers wants it done, which is, take more of a risk, be prepared to pay a bigger premium and hope that you get your financial return on that. His problem, as we've discussed, Daniel, £26 million last summer, and I'm not sure that any one of the three players that Celtic signed would turn a profit if the board decided to sell them tomorrow. That's where it conflicts with the strategy that Celtic, the kind of well-known model that Celtic's board have employed over the years. They went a different way last summer, but Brendan Rodgers, conversely, can point to, well, look at the amount of money that we got in through the Champions League to justify the fact that money was spent, and these players will be longer-term investments. Mm-hmm. It's not just, turn them over and get them out the door and double your money on it in one season. There's room for development with Engels. You've said already, Daniel, you think Trusteau's going to have a big season this season.
Yep.
Brendan Rodgers has a history of improving players when he gets a bit of time to work with them. So who's to say that doesn't happen? Adam Maeda, a lot of potential there, but a lot to prove this season. But these are ones that actually count against the Brendan Rodgers model, as opposed to the Celtic model. So again, it comes back to what we got now, just 5 weeks to the end of this transfer window. And these are going to be 5 make or break weeks in terms of Brendan Rodgers and his relationship with the Celtic board, and his not so much personal relationship, but his working relationship moving forward. Because I think they will have to show signs over this period before the end of this transfer window that they are prepared to match his ambition. And if they don't do that, then I think persuading Brendan Rodgers to commit for the longer haul is going to be difficult.
George, you can see in the comments there saying that Daizen Maeda's family are too settled here, and Mark goes further saying he seemed very happy at a club for football and family reasons. If Celtic were to sell him, Rodgers is off. I mean, it's a big call, but see if Celtic did, against Rodgers' wishes, sell Daizen Maeda.
Well, listen, that again, it all depends on, what sort of money is on the table. If somebody comes in and makes a ridiculous offer, it genuinely could be an offer that Celtic couldn't afford to refuse.
Yeah.
And I think Brendan Rodgers, he's not daft. He understands the way the business model works. But I think what I would be fairly certain on is if a stupid amount of money was put on the table for Daizen Maeda, Brendan Rodgers is well within his rights to say, right, give me it because we're spending it here, here and here.
Yeah.
So, look, I don't think it's as black and white. There's a bit of nuance in there, a bit of shade and a bit of grey area. But I come back to one thing. By the end of this transfer window, Brendan Rodgers is going to have to feel as if they're aligned and the board are backing him and they're as ambitious as he is for his side. Otherwise, I think negotiating a longer-term contract with Brendan might be difficult. What he wants to do, Daniel, and we've said it over and over, is he doesn't need an overhaul. He doesn't need a squad rebuild. What he really needs is 3 or 4 signings that he believes will improve the quality of his first team and make them more able to compete at the highest possible level in the cutthroat environment of the Champions League. And he's had a very good crack at it last year. And if he can tweak it and improve it, take it up by another 10, 15% in level, then he'll go into this Champions League campaign, if Celtic can get through the qualifiers, feeling they're really well equipped now to go and play the sort of football he wants to see played on the biggest stage of all. And that, is good for Celtic's reputation on the international stage, and it's very good for Brendan Rodgers' reputation. What he won't want to do is go into a gunfight armed with a water pistol. And that's why the next 5 weeks will be such a sort of potentially crucial period in terms of the relationship between Brendan and Celtic moving forward.
JJ makes a good point, I think, in the comments. He says it's about playing at the highest level for Daizen, keeping his place in the Japan squad as well. His next move can't affect that. Obviously, we're now that next season will be a World Cup year. You know how important that is to the Japanese players. I think having seen what happened to Kyogo.
Yeah, but Kyogo, and maybe you can cut him a bit of slack, because I think he was chasing something, Kyogo, wasn't he? He wasn't getting a regular start, and maybe he thought if he moved and the grass was greener someplace else, it might expedite his acceleration into a starting position in the Japanese, and it hasn't worked. And now, when you look at it, where were you better off, Celtic or Birmingham? What enhances your international chances? But for Maeda, it's a very different kettle of fish, in that he was already the first pick. Kyogo was trying to effectively take his shot and couldn't do it, even though he was the central striker for Celtic. Mm-hmm. But Maeda played in the World Cup as Japan's number 9, as the sort of player that you don't think the Japanese side would even countenance going to a World Cup without, regardless of where he's playing. But he's settled, he's happy. Playing for Celtic hasn't diluted his chances of getting caps for his country. And if he's happy and he's settled and he's on the sort of form that he was in last season, and which, by the way, he already is showing flashes of in this pre-season, he's got nothing to worry about. I think he's content. I just don't see it being a problem. I think Celtic can give him a nice pay rise, can extend the contract, and everybody's happy. And there will be a point in time when it's right for Daizen Maeda to move on. I just don't feel that time is now.